Ethan Miller returned to Seattle for summer break, carrying far more than a suitcase. He carried the weight of a relationship that had fallen apart after 3 difficult years. The breakup had drained him in ways he didn't fully understand until he stepped inside his father's quiet suburban home. He had expected comfort, routine, and space to breathe. Yet the moment he walked through the door, he felt something was different. The house felt still too still, and even the gentle hum of the refrigerator seemed louder than before. His stepmom, Claire, greeted him first. She had always been polite, warm in a reserved way, and careful with every interaction. She wasn't dramatically affectionate, but she had a kind presence that made even silence feel safe. She offered him a soft smile and helped him settle in too. The guest room, which he used to call his room before college, changed everything. Ethan tried to match her kindness, but heartbreak made his voice dull and his eyes tired. That night, after his father went to bed early, Ethan stayed in the living room. The rain outside had grown heavier, tapping against the windows like restless fingers. The dim yellow light lamp in the corner cast soft shadows across the room. Then Ethan found himself scrolling through old messages from his ex, rereading the same lines he had memorized weeks ago. Kate. Each message tightened the knot in his chest. He wondered how something that once felt unbreakable could fall apart so quickly. His fingers shook slightly as he held his phone, and before he realized it, a single tear slipped down his cheek. He tried to wipe it away, but Claire's footsteps reached him before he could compose himself. She walked in holding a small cup of herbal tea, the kind she always made when someone looked stressed. She stopped when she saw his expression, the sadness he had tried to hide, the honesty he hadn't meant to show. "Ethan," she said softly, not with pity, but with genuine concern. "Are you okay?" He shook his head. Not dramatically, just a quiet, defeated shake that revealed more truth than words ever could. Claire set the tea down and walked a little closer, not invading his space, but offering presence. Ethan didn't look at her at first. Case stared at his phone, trying to find the right words for what he felt. But everything inside him felt tangled. "I thought I was fine," he whispered, "but I'm not." Claire didn't interrupt. She waited, letting the silence guide him instead of pushing him to continue. "I keep thinking about everything I said, everything she said, and I don't know what hurts more, the breakup or feeling like I wasn't enough," he admitted. Claire sat on the arm of the opposite chair, keeping a respectful distance. "Heartbreak makes us question everything," she said gently. "It doesn't mean those doubts are true." Her calm voice broke something open inside him. Ethan felt his throat tighten as he exhaled shakily. It wasn't romantic, and it wasn't crossing any boundaries. It was simply one human being comforting another. But the moment was emotional. Intimate in the sense of vulnerability rather than romance. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to breathe through the heaviness. Claire hesitated for a second, then rested her hand on the back of the chair beside him, not touching him, but grounding the moment. "Ethan, it's okay to feel lost," she continued. "Pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you real." Her words struck him deeply. He hadn't heard something gentle in a long time. Everyone at college kept telling him to move on, stay busy, forget everything. No one had told him it was okay to hurt. No one had given him space to be human. A small crack formed in his voice. "I don't know how to fix anything." "You don't have to fix everything tonight," Claire said. "You just need to let yourself breathe." He let out a shaky breath, one that felt like it had been trapped inside his chest for weeks. He nodded slowly, feeling an unexpected sense of comfort. For the first time in a while, he wasn't pretending. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't trying to look strong. And then everything shifted in a single second. The front door clicked open. Ethan lifted his head. Claire turned, and there in the doorway stood his father, coat still dripping from the rain, keys in hand, eyes frozen on the scene in front of him. Ethan sitting in emotional collapse. Claire near him, leaning forward with worry. The quiet living room filled with a tension his father didn't understand. His father didn't speak right away. His expression wasn't angry, but confused, caught between concern, suspicion, and surprise. Claire immediately stepped back, putting distance between herself and Ethan, clearly aware of how the situation might look, even though nothing inappropriate had happened. "Hey, what's going on?" his father asked, voice low but uncertain. Ethan stood up quickly, wiping his face. "Nothing, Dad. But his father's eyes had already taken in every detail. It's the tear tracks, the closeness, the late-night atmosphere. The misunderstanding formed instantly, even if he didn't say it aloud. Claire tried to explain calmly. He was upset. We were talking, that's all." "I see," his father replied, but his tone was unreadable. Ethan felt a flush of guilt burn across his face, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he could see how the moment must have looked. He hated that something so innocent could feel so heavy under the wrong eyes. The silence stretched uncomfortably, filling the whole room. Claire stepped aside, giving his father space to walk in. Ethan wished he could rewind the entire evening, not the part where he had opened up, but the moment his father walked in, he wished he didn't look so broken. He wished the air didn't feel so full of misunderstanding. His father finally spoke again. "Ethan, go get some rest. It's late." It sounded like a suggestion, but Ethan heard the tension underneath. He nodded without argument. He didn't want to make things worse. As he walked past his father, he felt the weight of unsaid things, pressing on all of them. Claire stayed in the living room, her expression calm but troubled. His father didn't say anything more, but his silence felt like a storm waiting in the distance. Ethan went upstairs, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The house felt heavier than when he arrived. The moment meant for healing had turned into the beginning of something none of them were ready for. And for the first time since coming home, Ethan realized this summer was about to change all their lives in ways he couldn't imagine. The morning after the uncomfortable incident, Ethan woke with a heavy feeling he couldn't shake. The sunlight coming through the blinds felt colder, as if the house itself carried a strange tension. When he walked downstairs, he found his father, sitting at the table, sipping coffee without looking up. Claire was making breakfast, her movements slow and careful, like she was afraid any sound might set something off. "Good morning," Ethan said quietly. His father nodded but didn't lift his eyes. Claire offered a small smile, but even that looked strained. Ethan sat down, feeling the awkwardness settle around them like fog. No one mentioned what happened the night before, but the silence said everything. Ethan tried to eat, but every bite tasted like guilt. When his father stood up to leave for work, he paused by the door. "We'll talk later," he said, then walked out without waiting for a reply. The door closing felt louder than usual, leaving Ethan and Claire alone in a house that suddenly felt much too big. Ethan rubbed his temples. "I didn't mean to cause anything," he said. Claire leaned against the counter, letting out a breath. "You didn't. He just misunderstood." The way she said it made Ethan feel even worse. He didn't want her to be caught between them. She deserved peace, not tension. To clear his mind, Ethan went outside to the backyard in the afternoon. Sky was overcast, and a cool breeze brushed across the grass. Sat under the old maple tree, a place he used to love as a kid. The sound of leaves rustling helped him think. After a few minutes, Claire stepped outside. She hesitated before walking over, as if unsure whether she should interrupt. But eventually, she sat on the small wooden bench near him, keeping enough distance to respect the situation. "You're quiet today," she said gently. "I just feel like everything fell apart because of me," he admitted. "It didn't," she said quickly. "Your father and I, we've had our own issues for a while. Last night just touched a sensitive spot for him." Ethan looked at her. She wasn't angry. She looked sad, tired in a way he had never noticed before. Her marriage, from the outside, always seemed calm. But now he could see there were layers he didn't understand. "I didn't know things were tense between you two," Kay said softly. "Some things don't show," she replied. We've been drifting for months, talking less, misunderstanding. More it happens when two people stop meeting each other halfway. Her honesty surprised him. Claire rarely talked about her feelings. She always tried to stay strong, even when it wasn't necessary. Ethan felt a surge of sympathy, not romantic, but human. She looked like someone carrying a burden alone. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want to add to that." "You didn't?" She said again, firmer this time. "You were hurting. I reacted because I care, not in a wrong way, but in a human way. Your father didn't walk in on anything inappropriate. He walked in on a moment of emotion, and he took it the wrong way." Ethan sighed. "Still feels like my fault." Claire looked up at the gray sky. "Sometimes we blame ourselves for things we can't control." They talked for a while about college heartbreak, life after pain. Their conversation wasn't heavy or dramatic. It was honest in a way that helped both of them breathe easier. Ethan felt lighter, but the weight of the situation still lingered. Later that day, the clouds gathered and light rain began to fall. Ethan and Claire went inside and found themselves together in the kitchen, preparing dinner. They moved quietly, but comfortably, not trying to fill the silence with forced conversation. Ethan chopped vegetables while Claire boiled pasta. It was simple, peaceful, until a sudden gust of wind slammed the window shut with a sharp bang. Claire flinched at the noise. Instinctively stepping closer to Ethan, he reached out, nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just a natural reaction. To steady her shoulder for a moment. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, just startled," she said, laughing it off. But before either of them could step apart fully, the front door opened again. His father walked in, stopping just 3 steps. Inside, his eyes immediately went to Ethan's hand, still hovering near Claire's shoulder, then to her startled expression. Claire stepped back quickly, her face turning pale with worry. "Thomas," she said softly, "it's not what it looks like." His father didn't respond at first. He placed his keys on the table slowly, his gaze fixed on them as though holding back thoughts he didn't want to say aloud. Ethan felt his heart pound. "Dad, she just got scared, that's all." His father finally looked at him deep, searching, uncertain. "Every time I walk in lately, you two are together." Words weren't loud, but they carried weight. Claire shook her head. "You're misunderstanding again." His father walked past them, heading toward the stairs. "We'll talk later," he said, but his tone made it clear he didn't mean tonight. Maybe not even soon. When he disappeared upstairs, the house fell into another heavy silence. Ethan looked at Claire, unsure what to say. She pressed her hands together, her expression tense. "He's not angry at you," she said quietly. "He's angry at everything he doesn't want to face." But even as she said it, Ethan could see the hurt in her eyes. She felt the distance growing too. She felt the coldness. And Ethan suddenly realized Claire wasn't just being misunderstood, she was struggling inside. A marriage that was slowly losing its balance. That night, Ethan stayed in his room, trying to make sense of everything. His father's suspicion, Claire's pain, his own guilt, they tangled together in a way he didn't know how to untangle. He lay awake long after midnight, staring at the ceiling, listening to faint sounds of muffled conversation coming from his father and Claire's room. He couldn't hear the words, only the tone voices, sharp one moment, quiet the next. A soft argument, a frustrated sigh. A door closing gently. Silence again. Ethan closed his eyes. This house was supposed to be a safe place to heal after heartbreak. Instead, he found himself in the middle of someone else's storm. And even though he never meant to be part of it, he could feel the tension rising like a wave preparing to crash. He didn't know how to fix his own life, let alone theirs. But the one thing he knew for sure was that nothing about this summer was going to be simple. Something was changing slowly, painfully, quietly, and Ethan had no idea where it would lead. The tension inside the house didn't fade with time. It grew heavier, like thick clouds gathering before a storm. Ethan woke the next morning feeling drained. He barely slept, kept awake by the faint echoes of his father and Claire arguing. Behind closed doors, he couldn't hear their words, but the tone had said enough. Something was breaking long before he ever returned home. At breakfast, the silence was sharp again. His father sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact. Claire moved gently around the kitchen, placing plates on the table without saying more than a quiet "Good morning." Ethan felt like an outsider in the place he once considered safe. No one talked about the previous night. No one talked about anything. When the meal ended, his father left quickly for work. The moment the door shut, Claire leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. She looked exhausted, as though she had been carrying a weight no one else could. "See? Did you two talk last night?" Ethan asked carefully. Claire shook her head slowly. "We tried, but we weren't really listening to each other." She sighed. That happens when resentment builds up. Her voice wasn't angry. It was sad calm in a way that made Ethan's heart ache for her. He had never seen her look so defeated. She always wore a calm smile, but now even that felt like a mask she no longer had the strength to hold up. "You don't deserve this," Ethan said softly. Claire didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the window, watching the gray Seattle sky. "Sometimes people drift apart without meaning to," she whispered. "You keep telling yourselves you'll fix things. But one day you wake up and realize you haven't tried in a long time." Her honesty made Ethan feel smaller, like he was witnessing something he was never meant to see. But she wasn't confiding in him romantically. She was simply tired of carrying everything alone. And in some strange way, Ethan's presence made her feel safe enough to admit it. He didn't push further. He didn't want to cross any emotional lines. He just sat with her in that quiet moment, letting her breathe. Later that afternoon, Ethan overheard something he never expected. He had gone upstairs to grab a book when he heard voices from the bedroom his father and Claire shared. Their door wasn't fully closed, and their conversation traveled down the hallway. "I feel like you're closer to him than you are to me," his father said, voice tight with frustration. Claire's reply came quickly, firm but hurt. "That's not true. He's your son. I was comforting him." "That's all?" "It didn't look like that," his father said. "Not either time." "That's because you're not seeing the whole picture," she argued. "You only see what scares you." Ethan froze outside the door, feeling sick. He knew he shouldn't be listening, but the words kept pulling him in. "You keep shutting me out," his father said. "You talk more to him than to me lately." "Haven't tried talking to me in months," she replied quietly. Ethan didn't create this distance. It was already here. A long silence followed, one so heavy Ethan could feel it through the walls. Then his father spoke again, voice low. "I don't want to lose you. And I don't want to feel alone in my own home," Claire whispered. Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. He didn't want to hear anymore. Felt like he was intruding on something deeply personal. He hurried downstairs and sat on the couch, feeling guilt swirl inside him like a storm. He never meant to be the cause of tension. He never meant to be in the middle of their marriage. But no matter how hard he tried to stay distant, the misunderstandings kept pulling all three of them into the same painful circle. That evening, Ethan made a decision. He needed to give them space. He needed to remove himself from the situation before things grew worse. He packed a small bag quietly, not wanting Claire or his father to hear the zipper of his suitcase. He couldn't stay in a house that felt like it was breaking at the seams. And he certainly didn't want to be blamed for pieces that weren't his when he walked downstairs with a bag in his hand. Claire turned the corner and stopped. Her eyes widened when she saw the luggage. "You're leaving?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. "I think it's better if I go." "Ethan, no." She stepped closer, but kept enough space to avoid any misunderstanding. "Please don't blame yourself for this. You didn't cause our problems, but I made them worse," he said. "You think something happened between us. Kay, I don't want to be the reason you two fight." Claire's expression filled with emotion, concern, sadness. maybe even frustration at how far the misunderstanding had gone. "Listen," she said, voice quiet but firm. "You are not the problem. We were drifting long before you came home. It just happened to be here when everything finally came to the surface." "I still feel like I should leave," Ethan said. "You don't run from hurt," Claire whispered. "You face it, but you shouldn't face ours. It's not your responsibility." Before Ethan could answer, footsteps echoed from the hallway. His father stepped into view, eyes landing on the suitcase immediately. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, deeply tired. "Where are you going?" His father asked. "I was going to stay with a friend for a while," Ethan said. "I thought maybe you two needed time alone." His father stared at him, guilt flickering across his face. "Ethan, your leaving won't fix anything." "It might help," Ethan said quietly. "No," his father replied. He glanced at Claire, then back at Ethan. "We need to talk, all three of us." Right now, Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know if this talk would solve anything or make everything worse. But his father's tone wasn't angry this time, just honest. Claire nodded slowly, agreeing. They all walked into the living room together. It's the same room where everything began only a few nights earlier. It's the same room where the first misunderstanding had taken root. Ethan sat down, unsure what to expect. His father stood for a moment before finally taking a seat across from him and Claire. The air felt heavy but hopeful in a strange way. "I've been unfair," his father began. "To both of you." Ethan didn't breathe. "I let my insecurities speak louder than my trust," he admitted. "I walked in on emotional moments and assumed the worst. That wasn't fair." Claire lowered her eyes, relieved but tired. Ethan waited, heart beating fast. His father looked at him, then at Claire. "We need to talk honestly, all of us." And with those words, Ethan realized this conversation would change everything either. For healing or heartbreak, either way, there was no turning back now. The living room felt heavier than ever as Ethan, Claire, and his father sat together. The soft hum of the air conditioner was the only sound for several seconds, filling the space between them like a reminder that something had to finally be said. Ethan sat on the couch, hands clasped tightly, unsure how to begin. Claire sat with calm strength beside him, though her eyes revealed she was just as nervous. His father leaned forward, elbows on his knees, looking older than Ethan had. "Ever seen him? I should have talked instead of assuming," his father finally said, voice low but steady. "I let fear guide my thoughts, fear of losing the people I care about." Claire looked at him gently. "It's Thomas. No one was trying to hurt you. I know that now," he said. "But those moments, walking in and seeing you two together, I reacted before thinking." Ethan swallowed hard. "Dad, nothing inappropriate ever happened. You walked in during emotional moments, not anything wrong?" His father nodded slowly. "I believe you." He rubbed his forehead as if trying to ease weeks of tension. "The truth is, Claire and I haven't been in sync for a long time. And when things feel unstable, your mind starts creating threats that aren't real." Claire's eyes softened. "You should have told me you felt that way. I didn't know how," he admitted. "I didn't want to make things worse." The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time, just honest. A quiet acceptance passed through the room, allowing each of them to breathe a little deeper. Ethan cleared his throat. "Listen, I didn't mean to bring my problems into this house. I was hurting, and I leaned on both of you more than I should have. But I never wanted to make your marriage harder." Claire shook her head gently. "You didn't cause anything, Ethan. Your presence only brought things to the surface that were already there." His father hesitated, then looked directly at Claire. "We've been drifting. I know it, but I never wanted distance. I just didn't know how to bridge the gap." Claire took a long breath before speaking. "We stopped communicating. We started living next to each other instead of with each other. That's what created the gap, not Ethan, not anyone else." Her words weren't harsh. They were truthful in a peaceful way. Words she had held inside for months. Ethan watched them. wishing he could disappear but knowing this conversation needed his presence. He was the unintentional mirror that forced both of them to see things clearly. His father turned to him again. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I'll put you in a position you didn't deserve. I let my insecurities show, and that wasn't fair to you." Ethan felt something lift off his chest. "I forgive you," he said quietly. "I just want us to be okay." His father nodded, relief softening his expression. "We will be. Just need to rebuild trust in all directions." Claire folded her hands. "And we need honesty, not just apologies." Her father looked at her, hurt and hope mixing in his eyes. "Do you still want to fix this?" Claire paused, not out of doubt, but out of careful thought. "Yes, but fixing it means real effort. Not pretending we're fine when we're not." His father nodded again, this time with more conviction. "I want to work on us, truly." Quiet hope settled into the room, gentle, fragile, but real. Ethan exhaled, finally setting his bag down on the floor. Claire noticed and gave him a small, grateful smile. "You're not leaving," she said softly. It wasn't a question, it was both reassurance and a request. Ethan nodded. "Not unless you want me to." His father shook his head. "No, this is your home too?" The words held weight, as if opening a door that had been closed for too long. Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest, easing the ache of the past few days. For the first time in weeks. The house didn't feel like a battlefield. Felt like a place where healing might actually begin. Later that evening, after dinner, Ethan stepped outside to the front porch. The sky had cleared after days of gray, revealing soft streaks of orange and pink. The air smelled fresh after the rain. He leaned against the railing, letting the cool breeze brush against his face. A moment later, Claire stepped outside too. She kept a respectful distance, folding her arms against the chill. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan replied, "just thinking about today." She asked, "About everything," he said with a small smile. Claire nodded, looking out at the quiet street. "This house needed honesty," she said, "even if it arrived in a complicated way." "I didn't want to make your life harder," Ethan said. "You didn't," she replied softly. "Sometimes life gets messy. Sometimes people lose their way. But moments like today remind us what really matters." Ethan appreciated her calmness, her gentleness. She had guided him through heartbreak without crossing any boundaries. She had cared for him the way a stepmom should, not too close, not too distant, but human and warm. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for everything." Claire smiled faintly. "You're a good person, Ethan. Don't let heartbreak convince you otherwise." Her words soothed something deep inside him, a wound he'd been ignoring. And in that moment, Ethan finally felt a small spark of hope returning before they could say more. The front door opened again. His father stepped outside, hands in his pockets, looking calmer than he had in days. "There you two are," he said. "I thought maybe we could watch a movie tonight, reset things a bit." Ethan smiled. "Yeah, that'd be good." Claire nodded gently. A fresh start. The three of them walked inside together, not as a broken family, but a family beginning to heal. Not as the night settled. The house felt lighter. Ethan sat on the couch between his father and Claire, watching an old comedy they used to love. For the first time since coming home, he felt a sense of belonging, not forced, not awkward, just real. His heartbreak didn't vanish, but it no longer felt like something he had to carry alone. His father and Claire had their own journey ahead, one of rebuilding trust, reconnecting, choosing each other again. But tonight was a beginning, and beginnings were enough. The rain outside slowed to a soft drizzle, tapping gently against the windows. Inside, warmth spread through the room like a quiet promise that life, even when complicated, could still find a way forward. Ethan leaned back into the cushions, breathing easier than he had in months. For the first time in a long time, everything felt like it might be okay.